they're trying to amass this huge army against what is effectively just Teresa. Like, Teresa is so dangerous. The fact that she's even got Jennifer Aydin on her side in order to like do whatever she wants is seen as a huge threat. I think one of the things that is great about Teresa as a housewife is that she doesn't really care where the pieces are on the chessboard. She can play from any position and still be dangerous and cause chaos. She's not trying to get people on side, which is such a contrast with what we're seeing on the other side, where Margaret and Melissa and Rachel are frantically trying to, pull the people that are kind of straddling the middle, like Dolores and Danielle.
Melissa's like LeBron. She's got to just surround herself with all-stars to win titles. Can't do that.
Hello and welcome to the Bravo Outsider Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Midwinter. We're coming at you at a new time of the week, changing our release schedule up a little bit. Joined, as always, by Dylan Ferguson. Dylan, how's it going?
Just fine. Still mourning the loss of Vanderpump a little bit, but otherwise fine and dandy.
Yeah, I got to pour out a pumptini.
Yeah.
Our guest is none other than Derick McDuff, the host of the underrated podcast.
My faith is strong and my ass ain't bad either.
It's true, folks.
There we go.
Yeah. Glad to have you on. Do you want to let our listeners know a little bit about your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do a movie podcast. Like you said, it's called Underrated, where, as the name would imply, every other week I talk about an underrated movie, or an underappreciated movie, or maybe one that slipped under the radar, just kind of passed most people by. So yeah, it's a lot of fun because I get to talk a lot about movies that wouldn't normally be discussed on other podcasts, and get to kind of like uncover some hidden gems, some things that people might not appreciate, much like, some of the Bravo shows. People don't appreciate all the great thematic things that are going on. But I like to delve into those shows and examine them. So you can find that however you're listening to this podcast, just look up Underrated Movie Podcast, and it'll show right up there.
Yeah, it really aligns well, I think, with what we're doing here, because I do think that when a lot of the discussion surrounding reality TV happens, people kind of overlook a lot of the artfulness of it. So excited to maybe dive into a little bit of that this week. But I was saying before we started rolling, I was feeling like this week was a little thin in terms of the material that we're covering. And Dylan, I think you were in agreement, but we're going to talk about Real Housewives of New Jersey and the Valley. Derick, were either of these like more or less compelling to you?
I thought the Valley was pretty interesting.
Let's dive into the Valley then. We'll get started with a quick summary of what happened this episode as far as you understood it.
All right, so basically, Janet had a hibachi party, but not everybody was invited. A little bit after that, Jesse and Michelle were having marital problems because it seemed to me that maybe Jesse could not stand up for himself, and he's about to go to some weird wellness retreat. And then finally, there's another fashion party where the tables are turned now, a fashion, a kind of fashion kickoff rejuvenation something party, where now Janet isn't the one that's invited.
That's a great summary. The main thing that I had in terms of like themes for this episode is just like elementary school, you're not invited to my birthday party energy. This like through line of people trying to not invite someone that that is on the outs is pretty strong through this, and leading up into this moment for the Jax announcing at the end to all the people who are not invited on Janet's behalf. Just we've talked about this season of The Valley really exploring this contrast between these people who are supposedly adulting and it being a completely juvenile like conflicts throughout. This just continued that trend in another way. Dylan, was there anything that stood out to you in terms of how this was presented?
Not necessarily in terms of how it was presented. I just wanted to jump in on what you said about Jax announcing Janet's disinviting people or uninviting people, which was the funniest part of it for me. Just like how delighted Jax was to pretend to soberly have the unfortunate duty of saying that some people aren't invited, and just like, making a big show of it, making a big declaration in front of everybody. He loves it. He loves to do this so much, and that was kind of adorable for me.
Totally. Derick, how about you? Anything stand out to you with the presentation on this?
Yeah, so it reminded me. I like how you guys have kind of you'll find these big literary comparisons to things, and one that it really reminded me of was like the Viking sagas, like the the stories of these cycles of revenge that just keep getting repeated. And somebody killed your father, so you go kill their father, but now they want revenge on you. Just goes and goes and goes, like the Volsung saga. If people are read up on their epics, is what it reminded me of, because it's like, oh, well, you had a party and she was invited, right? So now you have to throw your own party, where now Janet's not invited, and that leads to the ultimate conclusion of the thing, where now they're going to the big bear party, the I guess the baby shower party,
baby moon. I've never heard that before. You ever heard of a baby moon before?
I have not either.
Have you heard of this before?
Yeah, I have heard of that. Yeah.
Wait, what is it? What does it mean? I didn't understand.
I think she did a pretty good job of explaining it, but it's like typically just something that couples will do, where they go on their last kind of trip as a solo couple before
the baby
everything.
comes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. I see.
But much like those old Viking sagas, it's like there could be many points when you could just break the cycle of revenge. And there's a point when, Zach comes to her and he's like, hey, just invite her to the party. Let her be the one to say no. And the cycle of revenge could theoretically be broken right there. But of course, she doesn't take the high road. She keeps that cycle of revenge going, and, ultimately leading to the big not getting invited to the party at the end of the episode, where there's waterworks and drama, and Jax, as you put it really well, Dylan, is just like, seems like, oh, I don't want to have to be the bearer of bad news, and he's having a great time, So all the petty drama, was really in this cycle of revenge that I found fascinating here. Because that's something I'm not super familiar with not watching a lot of these Bravo shows. So it was kind of my first introduction to some of that stuff. I've seen reality shows, obviously, but not this specific, flavor of it.
Yeah, I think you really did grip onto an important narrative technique in these shows, which is just the continual retribution that creates for unending drama cycles that will just that could theoretically go on forever.
Totally. I think that is something that we see on Bravo from time to time in really, high skilled reality performers, the ability to make something out of nothing. I mean, this is Janet's first season, and I think that she is doing a great job. Kind of like, she gets the game. She was able to turn this thing that she has nothing to do with. She really had no beef with Kristen, and now it's this huge, it's snowballed into this huge problem. I really like the agency that reality TV performers have in terms of driving the plot forward. We always talk about kind of the game and being able to sort of see the playing field. I think that for a kind of a season one of a reality TV show, we're seeing a lot higher level plot orchestration in this franchise than we have elsewhere, and that's that should be expected, because Jax and Kristen are both great at that. But I think having Janet in the mix has really helped. I think there's been a few points where it could have fizzled. We saw how both Kristen and Jax have tried to, play puppeteer with Jasmine with this whole rumor situation, and it went nowhere. She just kind of went back and forth between them and didn't do anything with this information. So to have someone who can, see what the layout of the playing field is like, and make moves like Janet has done in order to create this division, I think is really great.
Yeah, that's been one of the most interesting things to watch about the show so far, is because I don't know if you do this, Derek, but Kristen and Jax were previously on Vanderpump Rules for a long time. So they've been doing like reality TV for a long time. And then we've got a bunch of people who are less familiar with it. So it's just kind of been interesting seeing kind of who can try to play the game of drama on who can play with Jax and Kristen, who can like keep with them, and who's like cut out for this and who's not. And we're still kind of starting to find that out, because we're still just seeing a little bit more and more of all these performers. And there is a good contrast between Jasmine and Janet in this episode, because Jasmine is, like you say, Greg, she's really put in the position to be the one who ferries information around. And we see her sitting down to lunch with Kristen, and she does not look cut out for this. Like, Jasmine's likable. She's got a good screen presence and stuff, but she's like nervous as hell. Like, it just doesn't seem to know how to proceed. Like, she's like, she doesn't have that killer instinct to like to find the right word to start manipulating other people. Whereas Janet seems like ready to go. Like, she like wants to stir shit up, and that's one of the things that's fun as we're starting to learn a little bit more about the relationship between Janet and Jason. Is that it's starting to see more and more like Janet is like really eager to get her hands dirty, and Jason is just kind of a bit of like a straight-laced Boy Scout who doesn't really want to do any of this stuff. And that difference between them is starting to get really funny to me, especially like when they're playing that game, that couples game on the couch and stuff. It was like, I felt like a great encapsulation of that vibe. Like when they're talking about sticking fingers in asses, and Janet just says like, I wish I could get a knuckle in. That plus the fact that like they both answer that the most public place they've had sex is on their couch. Yeah. Is just like pretty funny to me as like a little sneak peek into their relationship.
Yeah. And the one other thing too I wanted to just add that I forgot to mention about the whole relating to a Vikings thing is that there's a character in this, and I think he's like a background character. He shows up just in the background of the party, but his name is Jor. Like Thor, but with a J, which I was like, there we go. There's another Viking connection. Which I just took immediate notice of that guy. He didn't do much, but I was like, your name is almost Thor. It's Jor. Like, that seems like a joke. Like, so I just said, but yeah, no, I knew that this was a spinoff of Vanderpump Rules. I didn't know who had come over and who hadn't, because originally I watched this. I watched both the episodes like today, like this morning and last night. But I had watched the episode of The Valley. I was with my friend Leo, who is very much into like all of these shows, like Vanderpump Rules and all the Housewives shows. And I was like, and we were very intoxicated, and I was like, all right, give me a little bit of the, the prep. Just
he was filling you in a little bit. He was feeding you a little bit of the backstory. Yeah.
Exactly. So I was like, all right, I got caught up a little bit, so I know where I'm at. And then I was like, all right, time to watch this again with a critical eye.
Nice.
Yeah. Another thing I want to talk about, just in terms of like the presentation on this, one thing that I think that this show does really well, or the producers behind this show do really well, is making use of like contrast in terms, like, for the sake of the story and for character development. We got a really good look at that again during that game that they were playing. I think they used the contrasting answers to really like build the characters up. But also leading up to that hibachi dinner, the entrances that we got for Jesse and Michelle being so cold, and like he can't like touch her and without her recoiling, to the next people that enter is Danny and Nia, and it's so warm and they're like basically on top of each other. I really enjoyed that use of contrast in their body language and how their relationship was portrayed.
Totally. But at the same time, it's kind of funny that when Danny and Nia have to do, they're like, who would you want to sleep with in the friend group, or who would you want to have a threesome with, or whatever the question was. It's right away Nia is making gestures to Danny like, don't do it. Don't fucking say anything. Like she makes gestures, and he picks up on it so hard. He writes something like no one, and Miss USA, my lovely wife, who I would never think about doing anything to harm. So that was kind of funny. It does, like, they do seem like a very loving couple, but then you also like see in that moment that kind of like the way they really set up fences to like kind of maintain what they have. That was kind of an interesting another interesting glimpse that we got out of that scene.
And I thought that scene also did something that set up what would pay off later on in the episode really well, which was that it was all about couples, right? Like they're playing a literal couples game. Everyone is all coupled off. To one point, Jax ends up alone, and after being kind of a jerk, where he's like, "Do you want me to stay? Oh, you don't? Okay, see ya, bye." And he just like clangs the door. But it's all about couples. And then one of the big ends, like a big emotional beat, I thought at the end of the episode was Zach not being invited and him feeling like he's not being invited because he's single. And I love the phrase he used. He's like, "I'm being singled out." And I really felt for the guy, even though his haircut is like horrible. Like,
we haven't talked about Zach's hair before on this show. It is odd. Like that. Where is his hairline? Is it? I can't tell where his hair.
It's astounding, and you forget that. It's half the time you forget because he's wearing like
kind of a Lego man,
right? Yeah. that's a good one. It's a Lego man, but
yeah, he's kind of giving like Evo Morales, the leader of Bolivia. Anyway, it's a remarkable hairline. Anyways,
it's like Roman kind of, but like I don't even know. But I really felt for him at the end of the episode because like we've all been there. Like everybody's had like when they're like single or something, and they have like their group of friends. They're all coupled up, and like I went on a trip with like my brother and his fiance, and then like a couple other couples recently, and it was me and my other brother, and we were just like, we're just the single guys. They're all just doing all their couple stuff, And he didn't even get invited on this trip, and there was people that didn't get invited because of drama, but he seemingly didn't get invited because he's just doesn't have a partner or whatever. And so he feels like equivalent to the people who are being quote unquote punished for the fighting and the drama. And he didn't do anything wrong. At least, I don't just with my limited knowledge. That's how I took it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally. I think that like he is someone that seems like they are working very hard to try to play at a top level. Like he seems like very smart. And so at the end, when we got him crying over being singled out and like not being invited, it felt a little forced and phony to me. I felt like he was trying to like make a moment to get some sympathy. Maybe it's just like
it worked on me.
Nerves. Oh yeah,
it kind of on me too. At first, I kind of felt like he was overselling it, but then the tears felt kind of genuine. But who knows? Who knows what's real and what isn't? But I did feel for him a little bit at the end. I was like, oh shit, I think he's actually hurt. I think he's actually genuinely wounded right now.
Yeah, and like once again, for me to feel for that guy with that haircut, impressive.
Yeah, that's just another hurdle you have to get over. Yeah. We're still talking about the couples games. How do you have sex in Times Square? How do you think that works?
Right, were they in a building? Like they couldn't have been out there with like the lights and where King Kong was running through and stuff.
Yeah, were they like in the M&M store, like just hiding, in a ball pit or something? I don't. Where did they do it?
Was it just like the strobe coming in through the window? Was that like turn on for them or something? I don't know.
All right, let's talk quotes. Was there any quotes in here that stood out to you?
The only quote that I noted down was, and it's kind of out of context, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but what they're talking about is the gecko food, and she says it's pretty good, and I was like, all right, cool. That just stuck out to me that, the gecko food is apparently pretty tasty.
That was great. I love that. And that's, speaking of moments where you like see a bit of the relationship, like through like one moment that happens. That's one right there. Like I assume that Luke Colorado has had geckos for a long time, but it has never occurred to him that he should try the food. Kristen sees the gecko food one time and she's like, I want to taste it. She is a certified freak. She's the best. Love her.
She seemed pretty cool, I gotta say.
Yeah.
We learned so much about Luke in that moment. Like, just the fact that he has geckos tells us so much about his character. That's such a character building moment.
Good old Luke.
Okay, let's talk highlights. Derick, we'll start with you. What were your highlights from this episode?
I think definitely, the hibachi party was a big highlight. How, it was because, all the games were happening, all the drama was happening. I think it really did a good job for a Bravo outsider to understand the world and understand the rules of the game that these people are all playing with each other. So that was definitely a highlight. And we also got my boy Jor there. So, that was cool. Also, another highlight was when, they were talking about their divorce, their upcoming divorce. Sorry, I keep forgetting. There's so many people. And I have my notes, and I keep trying to scroll through. Who are the two getting divorced?
Jesse and Michelle.
Jesse and Michelle.
Thank you. Yeah, and how Jesse seems like, I don't know, man, such a pushover, and he's like, I don't know, he just really was like, yeah, I'll go on this retreat because it seems like you want me to, and I'm just like, all right, man, like that was a highlight. And then of course the big finale ending where Jax delivers that while he's like got like a baby Bjorn stuck to the front of him and like coffee spilled on him, and he's like, people are crying and he's delivering this speech, and that was definitely, I think, a really, a good way to go out on the episode.
Yeah, you mentioned the scene with Jesse and Michelle where he's like packing to go on this retreat. I really loved this scene. Any scene where we have Jesse and Michelle in isolation is almost better than when we see them out in public for the most part. I think it's just such a tense and awkward environment. When she enters the room, she enters like a rain cloud, and he's an asshole too, but he his entire body language shifts, and he, like you said, he rolls over, but also he feels like he's going on this trip, and he's, I think, as Michelle clocked, he's looking for an easy fix. He wants the cheat code. He's like, yeah, my life coach says that I should go and do ayahuasca and mushrooms and start trading Bitcoin, and then I'm gonna be good for you, right?
I'm gonna do psychedelics for one day, and that'll fix me. And Michelle is as part of me thinks it's bullshit, and Michelle, that part of you should be all of you. This is bullshit. That's not how you fix a relationship. You don't just do psychedelics for one day and be like, I'm a better person now.
Right. It's not how that works.
Yeah.
Also, one more random stray observation I wanted to put out from that couple's game is I think I've also been on a second date at LACMA, so I felt seen there.
Are you in LA, by the way?
Orange County, so yeah, pretty close. Right. It's just like a 40-minute drive down there.
Okay. Well, I've also fucked in Times Square, so.
Dylan, what were your highlights?
I think we've pretty much gone through the main stuff. I think that I was disappointed when I found out that Michelle, having a boyfriend for a year, as Kristen put it, was just her texting a guy. If that's all it is just she texted a guy, it was that's kind of disappointing for me. I thought there would be juicier drama than just she's been texting somebody, and I guess
I think that they're underselling it. I really feel like they're trying to undersell it, because this whole lie situation is something that is pieces and pieces and pieces just keep trickling out. We're not getting this whole huge bombastic lie that is being presented. We're just getting new pieces of information, both about the lie and the flow of information.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely more to it than that.
Yeah, maybe you're right. It just felt like it was being walked back from what we got in the previous episode, where Kristen's like, well, now everybody knows I had to say it eventually. She had a boyfriend for a year. In this episode, they're like, she's been texting somebody. Maybe she's been emotionally cheating, which a lot of people aren't going to like this, but I don't really believe that emotional cheating is a thing. I'm
kind of on the same page. I mean, people might come after me too, but I think that's yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think cheating is doing something with your body, with somebody else's body, that you're not supposed to be doing. I think it's you're policing somebody's life too much if you're like, your emotions also aren't allowed to escape the box with another person. I mean, I get why it's like you feel vulnerable. I don't know.
I would disagree. I think that like it's about a level of intimacy, and you can be like intimate about things that aren't related to sex. I think that like I think that she could have crossed a line without doing anything physical.
Sure, but if that's the case, that's disappointing to me as a viewer.
Right? Yeah. Totally.
I want her to be banging Quentin Tarantino on the side. like we speculated about earlier. Now it's an actor, apparently.
Right, yeah.
Quentin's kind of an actor too, I guess. He's not ruled out yet.
Yeah, well, is it going to be someone famous?
Director, Bradley Cooper, maybe?
But I hope there's more. I do hope that we get we get more juice from that.
What do you have any other highlights there, Dylan?
Nah, I think we basically went over the parts that I liked best. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think we covered most of what I enjoyed about this. I think like the core of this episode to me, aside from just this theme of people like disinviting, was how we're not learning anything more about this lie, but we're slowly like being revealed the like how this information is flowing, because it seemed like for so long up until this episode that this was like Kristen that was going around with this information, and we got the rug pulled out from under us, and it's like, no, actually this is Jax that started this, and he put it into like Kristen's ear, and she ran with it, which is just like top tier play from Jax. Like, of course, he's the puppet master. And then we also learned that Jax learned this from Brittany, like that she's the leaky faucet here. And I just really enjoyed the dimension that we got to this information. If they're not able to give us more information about like the actual content, revealing the kind of the web surrounding this is a nice consolation prize. So I think that the production is doing a really good job of keeping this compelling when they might not have the material at this point in the story in order to like give us the payoff. Or maybe it's by design. They do have the information, but they're, playing those cards close to their chest.
I did want to ask you guys a question. Have you guys done hibachi? Have you been to a hibachi place?
Yes.
Have you? No, I haven't. That's why I was curious. It's something I mostly just know from like movies and TV. I've never actually done that, and honestly, it seems humiliating to me.
Yeah, like it's so degrading.
Catching shrimp in your mouth like a trained seal. What the fuck are they doing?
It's funny because me and the guy I watched this with, Leo, had been to a hibachi party together. Like somebody had like thrown it in their backyard. It was way less bougie than this. But yeah, I mean, I had fun. Maybe it was because like I actually sort of knew the guy who was the hibachi guy. Like he was a friend of a friend. It's just like, all right, yeah, let's go, but yeah, it was a lot less, it was more like just some people hanging out in the backyard having some brews and stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah. It is fun. Like it is like dynamic, but like every time you go to catch something in your mouth, immediately after it's like, what am I doing? I was like, okay, this is going to be so degrading for these people, and then that wasn't the most degrading thing. The most degrading thing was just how Michelle was treating Jesse that entire dinner. It was embarrassing.
Oh man.
Right, and then it culminates with him getting like wearing like a tutu like the Toxic Avenger and getting walked around like a dog.
Yeah. Their relationship is just the worst. It can't end soon enough.
Right.
Absolute nightmare marriage. They hate each other so much.
Okay, let's discuss our stars. Derek, we'll start with you.
So, I mean, obviously, I gotta say Jor. You know, he's a star.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then I'll say, you know, he won me over in the end. Zach. I really liked Zach. And then I think for my third star, I almost was gonna go with the dog, Monroe, because I love that they just like there's that moment where they like pan over to him and they're like, he's the dog, and I was like, okay, but ultimately I got to go with Jasmine because she seemed really interesting. Like she seemed cool, but also like she might be a master manipulator. Like she seemed like she was just kind of on the sidelines, like every once in a while, like sprinkling something in and being like a chill person. Nobody really seemed that mad at her as far as I could tell, but like. Maybe she was playing both sides. She was almost like Littlefinger. I liked her.
That's a really interesting read on Jasmine because I had not considered that she could just like have a really masterful like social game. Like she is using this information, just not in a way that you would expect to stir up drama. She's still able to have everyone on side while kind of poking the two bears in the situation, being Jackson and Kristen.
And apparently everybody wants to have a threesome with her. And she's just like, whatever, guys. I know everybody wants it, but it's not happening.
I think that's also kind of the easy answer because she's single, right? I think she's single. Or is she? And I think she's bisexual too, or gay or bisexual. I think she's bisexual. So it just kind of feels like more of like a safe answer for somebody who doesn't want their partner to be pissed off at them. Be like, somebody who doesn't have a partner who swings both ways. That's a little bit on the safe side for me to say. Yeah. I'm not going to get chewed out over this choice later tonight. I mean, she's hot too. Dylan, like, I'm not saying that that's not a genuine selection either.
Dylan, what are your stars here?
I don't know, man. Jack's probably made me laugh the most, so let's give him the first star, and let's give it to Kristen. It's a little unimaginative giving them stars, but they just like I sit up in my seat more when one of them's on screen. Kristen's presence has changed over the years too. Like she's become a lot more languorous as she's like aged. I find she's less like hyperactive compared to like younger Kristen and the VPR days. And but she's got kind of like this kind of weighty, languorous, heavy-lidded presence in these scenes. That is like very compelling to me, combined with her like her weirdness and wanting to eat gecko food and shit, and just like that energy she gives off where she's always acting like she wants to stay away from drama. And I think that might be partially genuine in terms of like an actual desire, but her whole being is compelled towards it by like a gravitational force. Just always a delight to watch for me. So I'll give her the second star, I suppose, and third star to the gecko.
Nice. I almost went with the gecko. That's really,
I think like Kristen deserves a star here. She gave us a lot of like visual moments this episode. We got not just the gecko food eating, but we had her laying on the ground while there's like a flurry of energy trying to set up this event that she's supposedly hosting. She's just laying there on the ground while all this chaos ensues around her. The wind is like blowing things over. People are trying to get things sorted out, and she's just at peace in this moment, surrounded by chaos. I just thought that like perfectly encapsulated her.
Kristen kind of reminds me of, and I'm sure that our non-Canadian listeners are pissed off with me for constantly referencing hockey, but I'm going to do it again. Kristen reminds me of Alexander Ovechkin in the sense that when Ovechkin was younger, he was doing like end-to-end rushing back and forth, like a very like kinetic player. And then you get to like older Ovechkin and he's like so languorous on the ice, and he somehow just seems to kind of drift into the zones where he's perfectly positioned to deliver the snipe on net. That's what Kristen's like to me. Her hyperactivity is gone. She seems oddly languorous, but still somehow seems able to just drift imperceptibly into the places where she is always the center of drama.
That's a good way to put it. As a fellow, one of the few hockey fans in Southern California, I appreciate that reference.
Hell yeah.
I want to give another star to Jax as well. I think that there was a lot that he was doing here. Well, for one, we got the reveal in terms of his role and the flow of information here. So, gets points for that in my book. Also, I love the scene that we got between him and Brittany, where he finds out that everyone is not going to be invited to this baby moon, and he's like, "Oh, I have to tell Kristen at this party." And Britt's like, "Why?" It's like, no, obviously he has. He's Jax Taylor.
Oh, I guess I'm gonna have to make an announcement to everybody. Do you have to do that? Obviously I do. Come on. It's like obviously rubbing his hands together, so stoked.
At the party where it's gonna be the most drama. I'm like, come on, dude. Go back to paying attention to your kid looking that window.
I love how his kids look in the window and Jax is like, "Hey buddy, I used to do that too."
Right? Come on, man. Also, one more question about Jax. Why is he driving a tiny little car in the intro?
I have speculated that it's a DUI because we've only seen him drive like a golf cart around. And so I don't know. That's just my guess.
Okay.
Nothing has been confirmed on screen, so I don't know that it's canon. But that's my head canon.
Okay.
And then I think my third star I'm gonna give to. I actually want to give it to Janet. I think just the thoughtfulness of not inviting Kristen to this hibachi party. I feel like if you are like a big brained reality personality, you might think, okay, obviously I have to invite Kristen because something's gonna like explode on camera at this party and it's gonna get airtime, blah blah blah. But galaxy brain Janet is like, this will actually snowball if I don't invite her. And it paid off because we're seeing, instead of just having a moment of conflict and chaos, we're potentially getting, a portion of the season of conflict and chaos as a result of this decision. So I am maybe projecting a mastermind persona onto Janet, but all the evidence is pointing to, her earning that.
Yeah, we've seen scenes in like earlier episodes where like people are arguing and Janet is just like hovering around the corner just out of sight, listening in. Like she's given us enough indications that she's really like collecting information, like really eager to get in there, even if she doesn't have like a huge personality where she's like getting emotional and stuff. She really seems eager to like start collecting and using information and start calling the shots a bit. So I'm excited to see more from her.
Yeah, she's also the protege of Sheena, who is, underrated in terms of her ability to navigate the reality TV landscape. Because Janet was her intern on Sheena's podcast. So I do think that
that's some lore I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, she's got good pedigree. All right, let's dive into Real Housewives of New Jersey. Unless there's anything you guys have to go back on.
No, I think that about covered it, answered all my questions. Oh, I guess the only other thing I would say is, why are they going to Big Bear when they could go to Mammoth? That's the last thing I had to say.
I'm unfamiliar. I'm unfamiliar with the area. What's the difference?
I mean, Big Bear is a little bit closer, I think, to a lot of people in, SoCal. But Mammoth is just kind of like a bigger, better version of it with like, because they're both like ski towns, and I don't ski or anything, but I, like I said, went up to Mammoth with a couple like friends and family recently. And it's just, Mammoth is just like kind of cooler. Like and it seems like the bougier one too, that if you're gonna like go up to like the mountains and have a classy good time, Mammoth would be the one to do, whereas Big Bear is like just kind of more local a little bit. Like if you're only gonna take a 2-hour drive as opposed to a 5-hour drive, I guess is the difference.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wonder if there's maybe Lisa Vanderpump opening a restaurant.
I was just going to say maybe there's a better sponsorship opportunity in Big Bear.
Real Housewives of New Jersey. Let's get a 3-sentence summary from you, Derek.
All right. So let me see. Pull up my notes here. Yeah. So some of the ladies are getting their butts electrocuted and rejuvenated, while others are playing pickleball. There is an 18th birthday for Antonia with some surprisingly touching moments. And it ends with a party celebrating the 6th anniversary of a brain surgery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
accurate.
All right.
Okay, so I want to ask before we really dive into this, coming out of this episode, did you feel one way or another? Are you more team Teresa or team Melissa? Do you have an opinion on this this conflict that we're starting to see emerge?
I felt like they kind of just both sucked. Like I didn't really. I wasn't like oh man, you got done so dirty. I was just like I don't like really either of you guys, to be honest.
That's good. That should be a safe opinion for our thumbs up rating on YouTube. Okay, let's talk about the artistic presentation of this. Derick, anything stand out to you?
I was kind of looking for something in this, and nothing really stuck out to me in this episode, other than I guess just kind of the themes of, vanity, and just because there was a lot of that, even more than in the Valley. It felt like these were people who were just all about like let's just be rejuvenate ourselves and like electrocute our butts and do all these insane things and throw parties for literally the most insane reasons. Like I've never like a party, like I said, the party for the brain surgery anniversary thing is like what is that? Like it just felt like the excesses of like wealth, and it was maybe commenting on that in some way, which doesn't seem like unique to this episode or anything. It seems like a very common thing with especially these kinds of reality shows.
Yeah, totally. Dylan, how about yourself?
I'll just say that I did really like the cross-cutting between pickleball and people with their exposed asses in mysterious contraptions. You've always got to come up with ways to make people gossiping in a room a little more visually dynamic. And they got a couple good ones there. And to just like cross-cut between them was like very visually entertaining. So, good work on that, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I think that there wasn't a lot going on in this episode in terms of, a thoughtful artistic presentation, if I'm being completely honest. I am worried that maybe Real Housewives of New Jersey is going to be a little bit of a dry well this season, mostly because we're not seeing Teresa and Melissa interact at all, where that relationship is almost going to be frozen in time, and that is a real pillar of this show, the ability for Teresa to kind of navigate things with Joe and Melissa. I mean, the rumors are that they don't interact at all this season whatsoever, so I'm a little worried about what's in store for us this season on New Jersey.
At the same time, it's episode 2. They're still like setting the table. Like, let's give them a chance.
Yeah, true. And I mean, it's not like this has, been a strong point of the New Jersey version of Real Housewives. It's maybe the least artful in terms of how they, how they communicate stories visually. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that New Jersey excels at is the actual, like the game, the housewife game. And I do think that we did see a lot of that this episode. So we're seeing kind of Margaret and Melissa, this side of things, really trying to pull people over. We saw it last episode with, Dolores, and a little bit with Danielle. We're really seeing them work on Jen Fessler. That side of the house feels very very panicked, and they're trying to amass this huge army against what is effectively just Teresa. Like, Teresa is so dangerous with the ability to play the game. The fact that she's even got Jennifer Aydin on her side in order to do whatever she wants is seen as a huge as a huge threat.
Yeah. Plus, she's got her new henchman and Louis too.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's get a quote. Derek, what were any quotes stand out to you?
The quote that I thought was the best was from when they were playing pickleball, and somebody says, I always sleep with the instructor to get into the sport. I thought that was a pretty solid, great quote.
yeah, that's Margaret. That's a good one. I personally, I was a big fan of when they're talking about what the word roadie means, and I'm pretty sure it's Danielle who says like a roadie. That sounds like a blowjob in a minivan behind a gas station. That's really good.
Yeah.
The level of detail and that was just very, very on point. Yeah. Another good one also, actually, again, Danielle, you gotta love her. She's like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And then Rachel finishes the sentence for her where she's like, yeah, go fuck yourself. Like, yep, that's how that expression works.
Speaking of expressions and how they work, I liked the one where someone said, explore your wild oats. I thought that was a pretty good one.
Yeah, Melissa comes out with that. Personally, I'm a little suspicious. I feel like that was an intentional malapropism. I thought that she was trying to be cute there, but it was kind of funny. What do you think, Craig? Do you think that was intentional, or was she just fucking up the phrase?
Oh yeah, it was giving Teresa. It was like she was trying to create a Teresa moment because Teresa is just so bad with the quotes and remembering how they work.
Yeah,
I feel like she was trying to do exactly that. And there goes our rating. I'm watching our thumbs down roll in on this video since I've come out as pro Tria.
You came out as pro Teresa long ago. It was one of the first things you've ever done on the show.
Okay, well, I'm going to lean into it a little bit now. I'll get things started with the highlights. I talked about how gameplay is kind of at the forefront of this. I really liked the moment where Teresa was talking with Danielle and Jen while they were doing the ass zapping thing, where Teresa is like, I don't tell you who to be friends with. Like, she's right. She never does dictate, who you can play ball with. She's not ever trying to organize a freeze out. I think one of the things that is great about Teresa as a housewife is that she doesn't really care where the pieces are on the chessboard. She can play from any position and still be dangerous and cause chaos, because she's just she's so reactive, but also I think underrated as a threat in terms of how she moves information around. She can just she can make things happen from any position. So it's definitely manipulation to say, hey, I don't tell you who to be friends with, but she's right. She can say that confidently because she doesn't, because it doesn't matter. She's going to play the board however it is. She's not trying to get people on side, which is such a contrast with what we're seeing on the other side, where Margaret and Melissa and Rachel are frantically trying to pull the people that are kind of straddling the middle with Dolores and Danielle.
Melissa's like LeBron. She's got to just surround herself with all-stars to win titles. Can't do it.
Except for sometimes when the all-stars end up ruining the team for years.
Sure. That might be what we're seeing happening.
Right. Who's going to what's the Clippers of who's going to get traded to the other who's going to end up
Jen
on the
Fessler.
Jersey Shore? Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I think Jackie is a big trade this season on Real Housewives of New Jersey. So Jackie is someone we didn't see this episode, but she has had a lot of past conflict with Teresa, and by all indications on the previews and what we've been seeing, it looks like she has defected to that side. So that's going to be a big trade to watch.
Also, Fessler was really falling for Teresa's charm, I guess. Does Teresa have charm? I mean, I know your answer, Craig, but Fessler was really, amenable to Teresa and going towards her side of things, even as Margaret was like apparently staring daggers at her from across the room.
Yeah, I loved how like afraid they were when Fessler went over to talk to Teresa just on her own. They're like,
because like last season, Fessler was basically stapled to Margaret. Like she was like completely her sidekick the whole season long. So that was a pretty shocking moment, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I think we saw one of the subtitles while they were mic'd up. It was like, oh, worried about what Fessler's going to say now that she's had a cocktail in her.
Right.
Because they don't want to give Teresa any more information because any little thing could be potentially dangerous in Teresa's hand.
That is what's so great about the show, is that it's just spycraft. It's like a Cold War thriller. Like it's all about trafficking information and how information comes to you and like who is a double agent and stuff. It is absolutely like a John le Carré novel. It is it's amazing how dense it becomes.
Right. Now that Shogun is over, I gotta get something else to give me all this crazy spycraft and double crosses.
Yeah.
Well, if you're interested in exploring Real Housewives of New Jersey as Cold War allegory more, check out our YouTube channel. We've got a video essay on there. What if Teresa Giudice exploded in the Challenger disaster? An alternate history. Check it out.
That's pretty good. Take a look at that.
Okay, so let's get into our highlights. Derick, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think my highlight was that 18th birthday party in the middle of it. That was the only moment when I was really, really thoroughly engaged. And I think a big part of it came when Joey was talking to his gay friends, who were like, I guess, engaged, and how he was going to be the officiant. And Joey was talking about like how he has like a difficult relationship with his own family, and none of them were there, but he had been like accepted into this family. And he was just, really like great and accepting of his friends. And he's one of those guys, who clearly like he's not raised in a place where he like was around a lot of, probably a lot of queer people or, people that were not like himself, but he was just so like, he was just like a good guy. He was just like an idiot doing his best. And I kind of like found that really endearing and powerful. And he's just like putting his arms around them. He's like, I'm going to be the officiant. And then when he's practicing in the car and he's like, I pronounce you man and wedding. I thought that could be another quote. But yeah, that for me was by far the highlight of the whole episode. I really loved that.
Yeah, I think that was a really great scene for Joe as well. Melissa is definitely on a PR campaign for Joe this season. We've shown her, kind of like build him up several times over the course of this episode. We hear her talk about how like great her family is and stuff like that. This is really the only way that she's able to kind of come at Teresa so far this episode, because this shattered relationship that Joe and Teresa have is it's kind of the only thing that she seems like she's able to weaponize right now. Dylan, what are your highlights?
Like I think you guys this episode didn't exactly blow me out of the water. One thing I will say, and I've made this point about New Jersey in the previous season, is that the parties they have in New Jersey seem way more appealing to me than the parties they have in other shows. That their Jersey Shore party actually was like, I want to be there vibes. Like they've got gnocchi and highballs and like fat grilled shrimp that you could just load up on your plate. Nobody's gonna make you bark and clap to have it tossed in your mouth. On the docks with the sea breeze coming in, it looked chill to me. Like it looked like an actual fun, comfortable vibe. So kind of neither here nor there, but I just wanted to point out that party looked kind of fun to me.
Nice. Totally. I mean, I would go to these parties for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the Jersey parties always look like they're actually a ton of fun. Like there's people definitely enjoying themselves at these parties. It's not just like this empty excuse for everyone to be in one space and fight. It seems like
it's not like over curated for like Instagram photos, the way like some of the parties that you have in like Beverly Hills and Orange County seem to be like just all about the aesthetic and not the actual just having fun with your friends, the kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
So that seems cool. But yeah, it feels like the chess pieces are just kind of getting put in their starting positions right now. Like maybe a pawn here and there is moving up, but I guess I'm describing Jen Fessler as a pawn. But otherwise, it's like we'll see. We'll see if that envelope that John Fuda waved around in the reunion actually gets opened, or if there actually is going to be blow out new information that becomes revealed, or if that all stays sealed. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. I echo what you're saying. I don't have much to add on here. I think that we're seeing this new John Fuda emerge. I think that is maybe one of the more interesting things that we've seen so far. We talked a little bit about how much his personality seems to have shifted in the premiere. That was definitely continued in this episode. I thought that it was interesting. There was a quote from him where he says that he doesn't like it when people play both sides, and he directs that at or he says that directly to Danielle, and Danielle is in a position where she is playing the middle. We've also got Fessler kind of playing the middle. This is kind of like an emotional. It seemed like it was an emotional reaction, but I think there's a lot of thought. The strategy definitely seems to be we need to divide this. We need people to land on one side of the line, and he's trying to set the foundation for that. We'll see what happens, I guess. Again, there's not a ton to really discuss on this episode as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about our stars. Derick, who are your stars here?
Yeah, so like you guys said, this doesn't seem to be that super compelling of an episode, at least, compared to probably some other ones. So I had a little bit of trouble grasping on to anybody. But I do want to shout out the lady who was running those butt paddle whatever. Shout to
the
her.
ass contraption.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's doing the Lord's work, electrocuting these ladies' asses. Good for her. You gotta get your bag somehow. So shout out to her. Also shout out to the pickleball instructor who might get laid out of this. Who knows? We'll see. And then for my third star, I think it's got to be Joe. Like I mentioned previously. At least in this episode, he seemed like he had a really cool vibe, that it was a lot of the stuff he was doing was a lot more positive than I felt a lot of the scheming and manipulating. And maybe he's doing that in other episodes, but in this episode, I liked him a lot.
Awesome. Dylan, how about you?
The two quotes I highlighted were both from Danielle, so let's give her the first star because she's quotable. Just always fun to see what's going to come out of her mouth. And also props for her for delivering her important information while she was in the ass contraption. That's a pro move. Let's give a second star. I'll give one to Joe Gorga too. I'm not a huge Joe Gorga fan, but you're absolutely right, Derick, that he this was a good look for him. He came off as a big ol' sweetie. So sure, let's give him a stick tap there. And third star, I don't know, man. Let's it's Nate's party. Let's give Nate a star because he got brain surgery, and so unlike everybody else, at least he has an excuse.
I was almost going to give one to, even though he wasn't in the episode, Nate's brain surgeon, because we're giving us a reason to have this party.
Yeah.
I think those are good stars. I am wanting to give Rachel Fuda a star. I feel like she's got so much potential, but we're just really not seeing too much out of her just yet. So, TBD on her this season. I think that I'm gonna have to give a star to John Fuda. Again, he's the one in that duo that is moving the ball. So give him a star. Danielle, for the reasons that you mentioned, Dylan, but also for having this party and making sure that both sides are coming together for it. I think that is, we need people in the middle just so that we can have these situations where there is potential for conflict. And then I want to give Margaret a star as well. I think that we got some good lines from her. I feel like we are seeing her emerge as the true mastermind on the team Melissa side. I think that she's really the one that is pulling the strings over there. And if we're going to see a conflict this season, I don't think it's going to be between Teresa and Melissa directly. It's going to be Teresa and Margaret, or maybe it's going to be Jen, Aydin, and Margaret. That could be something that's going down, and it could be even more like the Cold War, where we're seeing these proxy wars being fought. So, interested to see how that develops. Like you said, not a mind-blowing episode, but it's early. A lot of Jersey left.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Derek. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you?
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And just look up Underrated Movie Podcast anywhere on any of the podcast apps, and it'll come up on all the social medias. It'll come up. You can even go to, there's a Patreon where I do a bonus podcast, just patreon.com/underrated movie podcast to find all the stuff there. I come up with new stuff all the time over there. If you want to find some more of my other stuff, I do some writing for places like Watch Mojo or Film Threat. Just look up Derick McDuff on any pretty much anywhere, and I'll come up. I'm on Letterboxd, of course. You can find me there and check out some other stuff that I've been watching. Underrated Movie Podcast is the big one.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Dylan, want to let everyone know where they can find you?
Dylan Ferguson. You can read some of my thoughts on contemporary movies on the Substack, just under my name. And if you want to hear me talking about horror movies, you can look up back episodes of the now defunct horror movie podcast, Mind Over Splatter.
That is a great name for a podcast, by the way. That's incredible.
I'm still proud of it years later. Yeah.
Well, that's been Bravo Outsider for this week. You can find us online, bravooutsider.com. We're on Instagram, TikTok at Bravo Outsider. Check out our website, bravooutsider.com. We post VR versions of some of our episodes. I've been neglecting that a little bit, but if you got a headset and you're interested, check that out and let us know in the comments if that's something that you even like, because I don't know. But be sure to tell your friends about us and leave a comment, share our stuff. That helps us out a ton. Until next week, keep on wiping.